Chapter 535, Fond of Teaching. Unable to tolerate the situation, Danitz decided to do something about the situation. He coughed twice and faced Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina Edwards and said, "Captain, Mr. Jayaman Sparrow has some questions for you." Phew. Klein let out a sigh of relief. If this stare-down continued, he felt as though his persona would collapse. Edwina gently nodded her head, looked at Klein, and said, "Mr. Sparrow, have you received an education?" "What kind of question is this?" Klein's expression didn't change as he indifferently replied, "University graduate." Ah. Danitz looked at Jayaman Sparrow in surprise, unable to believe the fact that this crazy adventurer and bounty hunter had actually gone to university and even graduated. He had no way of putting a university, a hallmark of wisdom, with that of Jayaman Sparrow together. Unless it's some Hunter University or Killer Academy, or a university that exists only in the fantasies of madmen and psychopaths. Danitz couldn't help but lampoon silently. Edwina didn't seem surprised. She continued to ask, "What languages have you mastered?" Klein resisted the urge to frown and said, "Jotun, Elvish, Dragonese, Ancient Hermes, Ancient Fasak, Lonese." Edwina responded tersely, "Do you understand the other domains in mysticism?" Feeling adrift for a moment, Klein felt like he had returned to his previous life's elementary school days. Due to his age handicap, he had been asked a series of questions by a teacher, such as how many Chinese characters he had mastered, if he had mastered the 4 arithmetic operations, whether he knew the English alphabet, and how many Tang Dynasty poems he could recite. "Calm down, you're Jayaman Sparrow now," Klein once again said without emotion, "Adept." Edwina thought for 2 seconds and then explained in an unhurried manner, "I have to combine your standard of knowledge with how I would answer the questions so that you can understand the answers more easily." This. Klein was surprised to find that the beautiful lady in front of him was nothing like an adventurer acting as a part-time pirate. She was basically a teacher with a cold expression, but a kind and patient attitude. He calmed down after thinking about the vampire that headed for the Church of Earth Mother daily. "This is the first pirate admiral I'm officially meeting. She's indeed unique." Klein secretly sighed and said, "First question, where do beyonder creatures appear at sea? The commonly seen ones." He didn't directly ask about mermaids, as he didn't want her to see through his real purpose, which would lead to unnecessary accidents. Edwina thought for a moment and then wiped the soulfall ritual off the blackboard. She then wrote and drew. "Set off from Sanya Island. Sail 1,200 nautical miles in this direction, and you'll enter the depths of the sea which humans have never explored. There is a Naga tribe active there. They've been working hard to find the underwater city, which is rumored to have a powerful demon sealed within. That's the entity of their faith." Edwina spoke in detail, partly from her own efforts to find the treasure itself, and partly from the knowledge and rumors she had exchanged. It took her a while to finish the general story, but to Klein's dismay, there were no mermaids anywhere except in the eastern waters of the Gargas archipelago. He quickly calmed his mood and said, "Second question, do you know how to remove the mental corruption from a beyonder characteristic?" He didn't hide the fact that he knew about beyonder characteristics. Edwina's eyes flickered for the first time, as though she had a new understanding of Jayaman Sparrow. She shook her head. "I don't know. However, I once imagined that it's possible by borrowing the power of an external force and completely crushing the corrupted beyonder characteristic to reduce it to the smallest specks of light. This way, whether it's corrupted or cursed, they will scatter having lost their vessel. They would rapidly or slowly vanish. As for the shattered beyonder characteristic, it will gather bit by bit due to their particular traits, eventually taking form again. Unfortunately, only gods can do this. If you get the favor of any god, you can try to please them by offering enough sacrifices and pray for a response. The law of convergence of beyonder characteristics." In his mind, Klein filled in what Edwina had purposely left out. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh. This Vice Admiral Iceberg, captain of the Golden Dream, was extremely knowledgeable in mysticism. She wasn't worse than him, someone who had read many of Roselle's diary entries and had experienced many things. It was said that Vice Admiral Iceberg can replicate or simulate the beyonder powers of her opponents when they use them in front of her. This is rather similar to Mr. Isengard Stanton's 2081 ring. As soon as Klein's thoughts began to wander, he forcefully reined them back, and he nodded as if he was thinking about something. I agree with this hypothesis. Regretfully, I haven't done it in practice. It's only a conjecture. Edwina rarely used a word that described emotion. Danitz, who had been listening by the side, had a dazed look on his face. He was unable to keep up with the conversation at all. What are they talking about? What are they discussing? Why do I know every word but know nothing when they're strung together? What's a beyonder characteristic? What does shattering it do? What does it gathering together represent? Danitz looked left and right, his eyes blank. At this point, Klein threw out the third question he had thought about. Where can you find ancient wraiths? He only mentioned this kind of monster because the corresponding ingredients could also be used in the domain of death. It didn't expose the secrets of his own sequence. Edwina glanced at Danitz and said, I'll keep an eye out for you. If you want to attend Bayam's Beyonder gatherings, he knows a few. He can take you there. Not bad, it's easier to talk to smart people. Klein added, do you know where there are people who can make mystical items out of beyonder ingredients or characteristics? I met one at a gathering, but he never showed up again, Edwina answered frankly. I have grasped the corresponding knowledge. I can simulate it, but I cannot guarantee the success rate. Hey, I'll wait then. Klein didn't harp on the topic and switched to asking, how much do you know about Death's Key? Little. An iron-black key suddenly appeared in Edwina's hand. It was about the size of a lyre, its shape was ancient, and it had a dark luster. The pirate admiral said, while half-carrying the item from the shipwreck, if you mean this key, then I can tell you that it belongs to the giants. Klein glanced sideways at Danitz. Your bosun told me that it can also belong to a dragon or a demonic wolf. That was the earliest guess. I've recently found some historical documents, and with the help of the other items on the ship, I have a rudimentary idea. Edwina didn't show any agitation. She was filled with patience, but her expression remained cold. After finally regaining his sense as the owner of the dream, Danitz curiously asked, Captain, is it really the giants? Yes, Edwina gave an affirmative answer. That batch of documents showed that there were still many giants active in the fourth epoch. Some of them had switched faiths to the god of combat, while the others were left scattered, becoming the hunting targets of the humans. One of the tribes built a ship and tried to find the lost giant king's court at sea, never to return. The sunken ship we discovered, along with some of the items inside, are very similar to the relics they left behind in their original settlement, so we have sufficient reason to believe that the key belongs to the giants, and it is very likely to be pointed towards the lost giant king's court of their race before the cataclysm. Giant King's Court, Little Sun said it's not far from the City of Silver. Klein didn't say a word, but he quietly listened to Vice Admiral Iceberg's description. I have to say, the City of Silver and the Forsaken Land of God are things I know that completely surpasses other beyonders. Even the 7 gods can't find that place, or they find it hard to figure out the exact situation. In this aspect, I'm stronger than them. Klein thought about it with a smug and self-deprecating manner before saying in a deep voice, If I offer a sufficient price, are you willing to sell the key? Of course, unless I acquire additional clues to the Giant King's Court. Edwina continued to speak at a moderate pace. Very good, if the Tarot Club organizes an expedition to the Giant King's Court one day, I will buy this key. Klein was about to ask the last question when he suddenly remembered the 4 adventurers. Relying on the power of the dream charm, he conjured the lady with greenish-gray eyes, who wore a man's shirt, and her 3 companions. Do you know them? Edwina took a glance and said almost without thinking, Letitia Dolra, an archaeologist and adventurer. Rumor has it that she's a member from the Moses Ascetic Order, or the Element Dawn. Moses Ascetic Order, the ancient organization that believes in the hidden sage. It really isn't for money, and their goal is definitely something from the abandoned temple. Klein asked casually, what do you know about Element Dawn? This mysterious organization was similar to the psychology alchemists, having been born in the recent 1 to 200 years. It combined the elements of various schools of mysticism. It had its own set of theories, and its members were all proficient in spell casting and had mastery in many ancient witchcraft techniques. Edwina pursed her lips and said, "They've always been fighting against the Moses ascetic order. Rumor has it that the eldest daughter of Emperor Roselle, Bernadette Gustave, established it. The Element Dawn is headed by Bernadette. Zeratol's prophecy is quite accurate after all. She can really be considered an important figure in the Beyonder world." Klein sighed inwardly, feeling somewhat enlightened. He resisted the urge to sigh and looked at Edwina. He calmly said, "One last question." When the beautiful lady and blazing Danitz's attention was fully focused on him, he slowly opened his mouth. "Are you interested in cooperating?" "What kind of cooperation?" Edwina returned with a question. The smile on Klein's face became more and more exuberant. With a hint of madness in it, he said, "Hunt Admiral of Blood."